And you've just heard Listen, the latest single from ASTER YVS. And I'm joined by Alyssa and Kyle from the band. Hello, both.
Hello. Nice to be here.
Hi. Hi.
And what can you tell us about Listen?
Yeah, Listen is our latest single. It's kind of part of a series of music we recorded. This has been kind of spanning the past 3 years, to be honest. But we're kind of been releasing singles one after the other. And yeah, Listen is probably one of the songs that I'm really proud of out of the ones that we recorded. And I don't know, I feel like it just kind of embodies a lot of our style and kind of chaotic leanings, and like lyrically, I think it's quite a good one as a band to like put forth as like our this is what we do kind of thing. Yeah.
It's interesting that you should say that, because I was comparing it to Crimson, which we'll hear later on, and they're quite different songs, but they both sound like ASTER YVS. You seem to have come across your sound, you know, quickly. Is that a fair thing? Is that something you were looking to do?
Kyle, did you want to say anything?
That's quite a difficult one to say. I mean, I think for me, for all the songs that we recorded, there's it was quite interesting to hear how they all kind of work together, and to kind of, you know, hear back what our sound is. I don't think we were very conscious of that at the time of recording the songs, and you know, like during the process, obviously we had certain directions we wanted to go with certain songs and stuff, and certain influences, but yeah, it's not till you kind of listen to them back as a group of songs, and hear the sort of the kind of familiar sort of sound that they all share. So yeah, I think it was purely accidental, but I suppose it when you work together on something for especially over such a long time, I think we got to know a little bit more about what each other like in music, and obviously learning how each other kind of how we work, and recording and writing. So yeah, it's kind of the product of what we've sort of learned about each other, I think, throughout the process, and it's good to well, it's nice to hear that you share that opinion, that we've kind of got a sound that's unique to us.
It's something I've never thought about until now, but I guess bands probably listen to their music so differently to listeners, to fans, people that listen, because to me, your sound emerges with each release, and then you can go and say, well, that sounds like another ASTER YVS song. But maybe for you guys, it's actually looking backwards and seeing where it's all come from and where it's built up, and you go, oh yeah, that does sound like us. Is that fair, or is that just hooey that I just come up with?
Yeah, like I feel like it's a lot to do with other people's perspectives on our music too, because like Steve, like before we started releasing anything, like we had this like group of songs, and we were like, do these even go together? Does this even sound coherent? And like even until like you kind of mentioned that, we're still like doubtful of like, is this our sound? I don't know. Do they sound just like similar? But yeah, I think having outside perspective really kind of helps solidify our style in a way.
And you said the word, Alyssa, chaotic, when you're putting the music out there, and it so doesn't sound chaotic. It sounds, I mean, obviously it's not effortless, but it's got that kind of feel to it, a kind of almost, what's the word? I get almost an ambient sound to it, particularly on Listen, you know, that comes across. It's got that feel to it. How do you work on that, or is that something that just comes out between the musical relationship between the two of you?
Yeah, I mean, I'll say my bit, and then I think Kyle might add a little bit on this possibly. But yeah, I feel like it's definitely a mix of our styles. Like when I started this project, it was like it was just like a project I started from college called ASTER, and it was very like that ambient kind of bass, which I think Kyle does also like lean into a lot. But yeah, Kyle brings a lot more like kind of dynamic noise, like maybe a bit more of the chaos. I don't know. I feel like we're both kind of chaotic in a way. So I don't know. Kyle, if you want to say.
Yeah, I think so we worked a lot together, like sitting in the same room, but we also worked a lot separately. And yeah, I think whether we're in a room together or kind of in the zone separately, it can be quite radical things that come out of that, and we can kind of surprise each other, I think, with that, with the sort of update on a track. But yeah, I mean, I suppose another thing that, well, one thing that we kind of shared was the sort of move towards more involving more synth stuff and more electronic, but like process beats and stuff like that, because like the band had sort of started as a guitar band,
Right.
essentially, and that was kind of my background as well, in different bands. And then as we kind of developed the sound, you know, it's not like brand new ground for both of us, but it's certainly the biggest sort of effort I've been involved with to move towards more electronic sounds and stuff. So
Yeah.
And give us a little bit to the background. How did you come to work together? How did ASTER become ASTER YVS?
Yeah. So we like met 4 years ago, which was honestly around the same time Listen was kind of like formulating, which was really cool. But yeah, we met through just like mutual friends, basically, being both kind of involved in the music scene and kind of more generally in Glasgow. We had mutual friends, and I had lost a guitarist at the time, and Kyle reached out like perfect timing, being like, "Hey, I can play guitar if you want. If you need a guitarist," and I was like, "I do." So it's kind of just all worked out. Yeah.
And Kyle, were you aware of ASTER's music before? You know, were you aware of Alyssa's music rather before you joined?
Yeah, I'd had a nose around Bandcamp. There was some tracks up there at the time. I don't know if they're even still there, but I liked what I'd heard. I was aware of Alyssa, yeah, you know, again through mutual friends, but I'd never actually heard her or the band perform. But I just sort of heard this. There was this sort of story going around that she played jazz, she was very jazzy, and I suppose the way that Alyssa writes guitar parts, there are often some quite unusual chords and chord changes and stuff in there, which is really cool. And I was so I was really excited to kind of hear the songs that she'd put up, to finally put the kind of music to the myth almost. But so it's not, well, it's not really jazz as such. It's certainly jazzier than anything that I've been involved with before. So that was pretty cool. So yeah, I just it was just like Alyssa says, it was just good timing, I think. I just kind of well, I'd been playing a lot of gigs with with another band who were like really great, and well, still are really great in what they do and stuff. But this is something that I've really connected with in a different way. So
if anyone listening isn't aware, there will be a video version of this, and to see Alyssa's reaction to the word jazz being named and everything is worth watching alone. It was tremendous.
Nothing against jazz. I love jazz. It's just it feels too big a genre to put on myself.
And I love that the music to the legend. You're gonna have to get that as well. So yeah, and, you know, you've released singles at a time, you know, and not exactly, you know, quickly after each other. Is that how do you look upon making and releasing music these days? Because I think it's changed, the approach has maybe changed in recent years.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the part we struggle with the most. Both me and Kyle are kind of, I think, similar in this way, where it's just it's a lot like emotionally to release music, and like when you're doing it all independently, you also need to have this like objective business view of it as well, which is really, really hard. And like trying to look at yourself and look at your own music making is really quite difficult. So it's very emotionally straining for us, I think. So that's maybe why the releases are a bit more separate, but it also gives us more time to like plan and strategize, I guess, having the releases so like far apart from each other. And yeah, like our current thinking and stuff plays into it as well, and like we learn more as time goes on. So yeah,
but from my point of view, I think that's no bad thing, because if you make a really outstanding single and release it, then someone like me or other listeners are looking forward to the next one. And it's quite good not to just say, well, that's out next week or that's out next month. It's, you know, it's good to have people thinking, I can't wait to hear the next Aster Eve release. I don't think there's any right or wrong way of doing it at all, but I think if that's your way, then go for it.
Yeah, rare little sprinklings of songs.
Well, exactly. Like the bands used to have to wait 5 years for their next album, that kind of thing that you're going on. And Kyle, is there, with releases in mind, are there others that you can talk about coming out this year, or are you still kind of concentrating one at a time?
So we've got a couple of songs left over from that kind of period that as I say, we've listened to them as like, you know, like a set of 5 songs, and they seem to be reasonably cohesive. I mean, I think the releasing things individually, like the songs that were, you know, that this, yeah, listen to the 3rd song we've released in it, and I think across the 3 songs there's a commonality, but there's also they're also quite different in their own way, I suppose. So they feel quite good to have. It feels good to have released them separately. But I think we'll probably release the sort of rest of the tracks and kind of package it as an EP in the coming months, I would say, to kind of you know, to kind of signify that we've you know, mission accomplished on that one, and we can move on to the other stuff that we're doing. I mean, we're already ahead of the game with that. We've not really stopped writing new stuff. We do have, I mean, if you want a really big secret, we do have another song that's like much more in the kind of I guess it leans towards like your direction with the music that we completed actually quite a while ago, so I don't think that'll be too far behind the EP.
And
if I'm right, Alyssa.
Yep, thumbs up. And that's really interesting to hear, because it goes back to, Alyssa, what you said about you're there to make music, and the love of making music and the emotion that's put into making music. And I guess that's always what you want to do. I've spoken to a few bands who are then talking about the music that they're releasing now, but actually what they're interested in is the stuff they're working on now, the new stuff. You know, to them, that's already in the past, but because of the way things work, you have to have some kind of schedule to put it out for people to hear. And is that the kind of complex things? Would you guys rather be, you know, in a room working on something new?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, probably. It's hard not to like let things in your present influence like the feelings and emotions of when you recorded previous stuff. And you kind of do need to like time travel a bit when you're releasing music, and it's like, what was I even thinking at the time? I don't know. What was this even influenced by? I don't know. Because it's hard not to, like, put
So
your
when I ask a question apparently as simple as what can you tell us about Listen, you have to kind of go, actually, what can I tell you about Listen? That was so long ago.
Yeah.
And what about ASTER YVS, the live experience? I think you played a few gigs latterly last year. One, what would people expect from a live gig from ASTER YVS? And are there some more coming up?
You can expect us to be playing in Leith Depot. I'm kind of that's a bit of an in joke because we've only played 3 times, I think, and in this setup, and 2 of them happened to be in Leith Depot. Both great gigs. It was really nice to be asked along by the other music promoters, and you know, they really care about what they do and stuff, and it was you know, 2 good lineups that we were on as well. It was really fun. But and on Saturday just past, we played King Tut's with a band called Anorak, who run a thing there called Inside Voices, which incorporates like their band incorporates a lot of spoken word stuff and poetry, and they asked us to sort of do half of our normal set and the second half to incorporate the poet as well. So we were kind of, I guess, assigned a poet, Jihan Asher, who came along and shared some of her poems over our sort of atmospheric sound bed. So that was a new thing for us. So I suppose like the live experience, we have one set that's quite rigidly rehearsed, and then so we've done that twice, and then this time we've done like half a set and then something that we'd rehearsed but not with the poet. So it was like we had her reciting her poems on a recording on our phones, so we had that held up to the microphone in the recording studio to try and sort of practice. But it was very different on the night, but it was really good because it was like I said, our set's really quite rigid in the way that we've got it rehearsed and stuff. So it was nice to have half of the set that was a little more kind of free flowing, a bit more sort of you know, us kind of waiting to hear what was happening rather than kind of knowing exactly what we were trying to do. It's like kind of a bit more in the moment sort of thing.
That sounds fascinating. Almost improvised over the music, improvised with the words.
Yeah, I mean, if we were a bit braver, we would probably just have you know, not even attempted it before and just turned up and done it and seen what happened, because it's kind of got that vibe, the Inside Voices nights, but we're not that brave, so so semi improvised.
I've heard of those nights. I was talking to someone before Christmas, actually. You've just reminded me, who spoke about those nights at King Tut's. They do sound good. And so,
yeah, they're
so and when people see you live, is it just the 2 of you, or are there other people involved? How does it work?
Yeah, so there's 3 of us currently. It's off obviously me, Kyle, and then Lewis, who plays bass for us as well. And yeah, so our setup is kind of, again, leaning towards more of the present, our present leanings towards electronic music. And so we've got like a sample pad, like a Roland SP404, which does like the drum beats. And then that's kind of our bass, where we still have like guitars and stuff. So it's very much like a mix of live instruments and electronic music at the moment. We don't know if we're gonna keep that setup or maybe delve more into the electronic elements, but people are like responding quite well to like the mixture of live instruments and electronic beats, which is really, really cool.
And I was asking someone about this recently, but do you feel, I mean, we talked right at the beginning about sounding like ASTER YVS. Do you feel any pressure then to kind of have an idea of how you sound or a genre in your head, or is it open to go, I want to get louder on the guitars, or we want to do, you know, instrumentals only, or whatever it might be? Could you feel quite free to just do what you want rather than what other people's expectations are?
Yeah, I feel like if we like played to people's expectations, we would be a completely different band, probably more successful, to be honest. But no, I feel like we both are kind of, in a way, very driven in our own style. Like, we just gotta do what we want and how we feel. And yeah, I think it's very based as well around what we're currently listening to, which for me and Kyle, I think it's like constantly changing, evolving. So it always does influence the music making and where we are at the moment. I don't know, Kyle, if you wanted to add anything to this.
It's just kind of brought something to mind. I suppose when we were rehearsing, it was, you know, you're almost kind of deconstructing the track that's been made and figuring out how to convey that live, when it's been, you know, for the most part only kind of existed in like a sort of production, like in the production phase. So coming together as a band to try and perform those songs, you know, involved a bit of compromise from what we were kind of extracting from the tracks as they were, in terms of the beats and the sounds, and you know, and versus how much guitar and stuff we were putting in. So I think we managed to kind of, I think there's probably, as Alyssa says, it, the guitar and stuff's been quite well received just now, and I think it's nice that the way that we've had to perform the songs hasn't felt too artificial or anything, even though we've been using a lot of kind of pre-recorded stuff in the show. I think we've sort of really found our places within that, and it's yeah, we've been able to, like, I guess there's been sort of like heavier moments or parts of songs where there's a bit more, you know, that's certainly louder and more dynamic, I guess, than what it was even on the recording. So yeah, that's been pretty fun.
That's interesting. So if people come along to the live experience, they may get something different from what they've heard on the record and on the recording.
Yeah, definitely. And it'll be interesting to see how that works in future. If we I guess if we start writing sort of in the rehearsal studio, like writing as well, you know, it might end up being the opposite with the next recordings if we were to switch that up, and we're kind of already playing them as we would be playing them live to record them. But I don't know, it's quite fun working it back the other way, although it's more work, because you're kind of creating two versions of a song. But yeah, well, we might mix it up, we might not.
Well, I look forward to seeing you live soon. I really think it would be quite special. I'm a big fan of your music, so thank you for taking the time to talk to me.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. We're also a big fan of your radio show and podcast. We like
Oh,
that,
thank you so much.
like the dedication research you do for all these little events. Yeah, really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. I do appreciate you saying that. And this is Aster Yves and Crimson.